The media reaction to Vince Vaughn's recent Second Amendment defense is as unsurprising as it is fact-free. Piers Morgan, remember him, fulfills the first syllable of Twitter, using that platform to call Vince dumb. The irony's lost on Piers. Only a dumb person would respond to facts without facts. Piers just showed up to a gunfight with a water pick. Also lost in this, GQ had asked for Vince's opinion, and he gave it. But unlike most stars, he did so with actual facts. No wonder the media freaked out. They didn't know what to make of a star who actually reads, which is why they reacted with flawed surveys filled with biased calculations. Tap the numbers slightly, and the research folds like an undercooked crepe. But the real stories are the stories that are ignored, like the number of gun owners who prevent attacks, or what killer James Holmes said in his diary, that he wanted to attack an airport, but he nixed it because of all the guns. That's just like Elliot Rodgers' manifesto, where he said he would skip targets where an opposing gun would cut short his killing. He killed 6 people. They were sitting ducks on purpose. And finally, as John Lott Jr., a gun expert, reports, Dylan Klebold, the Columbine ghoul, openly opposed the law letting people carrying concealed weapons at school. So why would he not like that? Because bad people prefer their victims at their mercy, i.e. unarmed. Kind of like when anyone debates Piers Morgan on guns. All right. I want to go to Geraldo first because this is the first time on the 5.
It is. Hello.
Good to see you and your
too.
mustache.
The Second Amendment is the most lavishly defended of all the Constitution of the United States.
And it should be, right? Because
Just wait till the B block.
It protects all of them. It protects the First Amendment.
Anyone who thinks they need guns, there's a gun for every man, woman, and child in the country to protect against the corrupt and arrogant and pervasive government. Is that what he said? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that remind you of Timothy McVeigh and the militias? I think it's totally terrible.
No, that reminds me of almost all of America. And by the way, why would you go straight to McVeigh? Why would you? That'd be like if you were.
We are bathing in blood in a civil war that is racking the inner city of this country.
That's illegal guns. That's not the Second Amendment. That's not law-abiding citizens, Geraldo. That's gangs. You know that's gangs. Don't play that game with me.
It's people with guns, please. Give me a break.
Oh, so
Baltimore, 43 dead in 30 days.
So, yes. And how did that happen?
Because everyone has a gun. Everyone has a gun.
No, those are illegal guns, Geraldo.
Because there's not stop and frisk. I think that's another discussion.
Well, we're going to do that. I want to bring Kimberly into this. Is the media shocked to hear a celebrity use actual facts instead of emotion?
Yes, and perhaps he was even shocked that he was able to be so courageous and come out and say what he really believes. I'm sure there's quite a few more people like him, but they're silenced because they're afraid about losing their jobs, because there is economic consequence to expressing an idea that is not widely held or viewed upon favorably by the mainstream media. But for somebody like Vince Vaughn to come forward, perhaps others will. What he's stating is a fact. What he's stating is what the law and the Second Amendment holds, that we have the right to bear arms and to be able to defend ourselves. And what you mentioned in your monologue is also factually correct. These type of predators go for soft targets where they will not meet the other end of a gun to resist their oppression and their violence.
Dana, I also, what we're seeing now is conservatives like me are clapping our hands like seals because it's so refreshing or rare to hear this.
So it's like you're so grateful.
Yeah, because we never get to hear this kind of honesty from.
He's delighted.
So it's getting more attention than maybe if somebody else had said it. Like
right.
if a Republican had said it, like, nobody would make waves.
Exactly.
So so it's great. Some of the examples that you gave, those are the mass shootings. Like a lot of the gun violence is actually not happening on that mass scale, right? It's like you don't get to 40 people dead in Baltimore in the month of May because 40 people were killed all at once. It's more random than that. One of the things I think is very interesting about people who, like in Hollywood, who would criticize Vince Vaughn is that they're also for a very popular and somewhat bipartisan policy approach, which is the decriminalization of a lot of the drug laws.
Right.
Okay. But a lot of those people are actually in jail not just because of the drugs; it's because the gun violation that went along with the drugs. So I'm curious with the left who supports this.
Yeah.
What sort of gun laws are they going to be willing to relax in order to get to their goal of decriminalization?
Ooh, that was an interesting.
See how I
did
that?
Kung fu
I'm
move
thinking
over
about
there.
it. So, Eric, I thought that Vince Vaughn's best point was when he said that the leaders who preach gun control enroll their kids in fortified schools.
Like I said last night, I'll bet Sidwell Friends is one of the most fortified schools in the country. That's where a lot of the president's children have gone. Here's what Vince Vaughn said that created such the firestorm, is that mass murders happen in gun-free zones. And that really kind of blew up. The left's head blew up. In fact, last night, Julie Rodzinski was here saying that there's no correlation between gun ownership and violent crimes. John Lott called me last night and said, you got to stop. I said, John, there's only a certain amount of time you can do this. So I looked up the numbers, and here are the numbers. You want facts? Here are the facts. Since 1993, gun ownership has gone up by 50%. It's gone from under 200 million to over 300 million firearms owned in America. In that same period of time, Geraldo, murder has gone down. The murder rate has gone down by 50%. Robbery has gone down by 57%, and forcible rape has gone down by 37%. Those are the facts. You can't argue with those facts.
When was the last time you heard of a civilian stopping a crime with a gun, as opposed to a 4-year-old getting shot in the face by a 6-year-old?
Thousands of times per day. In fact, there is a statistic, I don't have that right here right now, where concealed carry, increase in concealed carry permits has actually accounted for somewhere around 8% drop in crimes because people pulled their own concealed carry on people who are trying to murder them, rape them, or rob them.
Do you feel safer that Vince Vaughn is carrying a weapon?
I wish I was able to carry my weapon from New Jersey into New York and into the studio. I wish I was able to do that. I would feel much safer.
Very quickly,
From us at the table.
I was in Central Park during the crime waves of the 1980s, and I was packing a weapon just because we were so paranoid. A mass rape had just happened.
You didn't feel
I heard a rustling in the bushes. I reached for my 38.
Why did you
and the guy came out and said,
then?
"Hi, Geraldo." And I said, that's the last time I'm ever carrying a gun.
But why did you
Thank
carry
God
it in the
you
first
don't have a
place?
gun, Geraldo. I wouldn't trust you. But the fact is,
I would wing you for sure.
But Geraldo, this is the problem with gun control science. It's based on the micro level, anecdotal reporting. We're talking about statistics that are countrywide. There is a large packet of research on preventive crime used with gun ownership that John Lott Jr. has been painstakingly researched and kept. It's like this thick. So it happens. So anecdotal studies are interesting in providing an emotional debate, but not a factual one. But you did bring up stop and frisk, so I want to move on to that. Rudy Giuliani was on with Bernie Kerik, I think on Fox, discussing what happens when stop and frisk goes away.
Whatever you think of it, it prevents crime, particularly gun crime.
Right.
Chicago has less than half the population in New York and 2.5 times the number of murders per capita. We both have the same gun control laws, so it's not gun control.
You can't take away the programs that were successful. And that's what this mayor has done consistently. The biggest benefactors of the reduction in homicides were the minority communities, which are now suffering and seeing an increase in homicide, an increase in shootings.
KG, what he's saying is, okay, there was, I think, in 2013, 69 killings. At this point, there's 98. So you want to guess who's being killed. It's not white liberal talk show hosts.
No, it's not. And it's also what he believes, and I interviewed him on this morning. He said, look, this is the inability then of the police to be able to take guns off the street. He does believe that there's a direct correlation with the ceasing of a stop and frisk, the ability of the police to go up in a proper and legal means to be able to stop someone, question them, and take those guns off. Because when you know that this is put in place and they're not allowed to do it, guess what? The guy coming out of the project from wherever they have the gun, they're going to bring it out onto the street because they are not worried about an encounter with the police where they can come up and pull it off them. So it makes it all the more easier to be able to use it.
Dana,
it is the escalation.
It is a fairly obvious point. Stop and frisk gets guns. That prevents gun crime. And when you stop it, crime goes up.
Well, and this is also interesting. Wasn't it yesterday that the New York Police Department announced that they were adding 300 or 350 officers back to the streets so that they could help try to prevent the gun crime, but they can't do the stop and frisk. So the answer has been take away the tool that works and add more people to the mix, but not give them the tools that they need to do the job.
Yeah, and you wonder why they're worried. Eric, the other thing, too, about gun ownership and death is that they make it sound like gun ownership causes all of these homicides, but they do it by adding suicides.
Even when you add suicides.
Yeah.
Even when you add suicides, the numbers still play out that the higher the frequency of gun ownership, the lower whether it's a city, a state, or the country in general, the lower the homicide. Violent crime rates go down as gun ownership, firearm ownership goes up, even with the suicides. Adam, can I just point out something on the New York City mayor and future ex-mayor. Also, when you point your finger at the cops when something goes wrong, that also makes these crime rates go
I
up
agree.
as well.
I agree with that. And moreover, there is a civil war in the ghetto, in the black ghettos of America, and we have to wake up to it. And the only way to disarm the Bloods and the Crips and all these gangs and crews is with stop, question, and frisk. It is constitutional if applied appropriately. And to take it away from the cops, take this vital tool away, is to hobble them along with, as Eric correctly points out, the absolute disrespect that has been generated toward the police because of the incidents, the highly publicized incidents in Ferguson and Charleston and so forth.
And it victimizes the people that are living there.
It absolutely
It's like
does.
that they can't. They're the ones that get
also,
shot.
they can't reconcile increasing gun control. Okay, they want more gun control laws, but they want to take away the tool to find the guns.
So that's the problem.
That's why it doesn't.
And
make
they know
sense.
how to do this because Rudy pointed out that Bill Bratton helped him put together a law-abiding stop, question, and frisk policy so he can do it. So this is going to be de Blasio's problem if he doesn't put it back in place, and he's going to have blood on his hands in the communities.
It's going to be hard for him politically to put it back. Very difficult.
Well, he should if he
think?
cares about
I
black
agree.
on black
There
crime.
were 2,000 murders a year. Now there are 300. Those 1,700 statistically would have been mostly black young men whose lives would have been taken but for programs like Stop and Frisk.
Great point.